Ouch. I brought on America's accountant to go through all those numbers with me. So please welcome to the show, Dan Geltrude. Dan, if they want to get up to the levels or down to the levels they're talking to, they're going to have to really raise that unemployment rate. And that's one of the big worries that folks have had, right?
Of course it is. Listen, that's the third part of the trifecta related to stagflation. So you have inflation, slow economic growth, and we have both of those right now. But people have always been pointing to, well, the unemployment numbers are great. Well, hold on a second. That's starting to change. We see today Goldman Sachs announcing cutting hundreds of jobs. So we are seeing a trend, whether it's Walmart, Amazon, some of the largest employers in the country, all going in that direction. So to me, Scott, that spells a lot of trouble, and that's where we really need to pay attention to what's happening. Now, I believe part of the reason that we have some scaling back of employees is because employers for quite some time have been held hostage by employees. And we hear this stuff around quiet quitting and all that. Well, you know what? Employers have figured out, listen, we're going to rely on technology and perhaps outsourcing. Right. And we are going to rely less on employees. So where's that going to lead to? Jobs being cut back. And I think that's where we are now.
You know, there's a much bigger picture here that a lot of folks miss. And I saw this when I lived in London, when everybody went down that role of technology and automation and the likes, which is fine, right? I'm all for, I love technology, actually. But when you go into, say, Leicester Square in London and you go into the McDonald's there and there's no people there, really, a couple of folks in the back cooking. But then everything is touch, you know, it's a touchpad. And guess what happens? Everybody forgets that those municipalities now don't have the opportunity to tax those workers that used to be behind them, right? So in an effort to, say, streamline and go fully automated, the local municipalities started losing money. You know what I'm saying?
Well, listen, Bill Gates had talked about that we're going to get to a point where you're going to have to start taxing technology, like a robotics tax, because if you start getting rid of all these employees, you get rid of all the related payroll taxes, right, like you're talking about. Now, how do you make that up? Well, you got to figure out something else to tax. Well, and that's what we probably will see.
I think that they're going to try to tax. I think they're going to tax the machines. I mean, I think that there's a, you know, I'm sure as you well know, there's a business personal property tax, and I think that that's going to morph into something that they'll take on when it comes to automation, because they're going to really start to suffer. And, you know, and as we go down this route, and like you said, kicked off what you meant, it was these folks that are working have had these companies over a barrel as of late, and we're getting this wage price spiral where everything's going up, and that's going to be difficult. Well, this is one way you can end that if you're an employer.
Well, it certainly is. And how about this? You know, you had the Great Resignation, and then that started to morph into the Great Regret, right? Because people were saying, you know what, I've had it. I don't want to work anymore. I'm gonna live off of my investments, perhaps. The stock market's doing great, and you know what happens? All of a sudden, the stock market starts taking a hit. We've seen trillions of dollars of net worth being lost. And then on top of that, factor in inflation, where everything's costing more. So now what happens? Maybe you're going to have people that are going to want to come back into the workforce. Well, you know what? Employers are not sitting around waiting for you to come back. They got to keep things going. So they replace your job, or that job simply goes away. And you know what? Now there's nowhere to go.
That's exactly right. And, you know, I think you're old enough. I definitely saw that happen in 2000, then 2008, where I knew some folks that had this grand plan of retirement, and this is what they were going to live off of. And then suddenly things changed, and a lot of them are still working today. Maybe not as hard or as long, but they do have to supplement that income that wasn't going to be what it was when they were initially planning on retiring before the sell-off in 2000 or the sell-off in 2008. So that's something that everybody's got to keep in mind. I mean, think about it. A 6.5% unemployment rate to get the mandate of 2% inflation. And we're going to have that for 2 years. That's some pretty tough going there, Dan. I mean, 6.5%, I don't know what I don't know how well the folks could stomach that here. But that's going to put American businesses out of work, as well as a lot of employees in particular. And that's something I think that has got to be, got the government or the administration at least shaking in their boots.
Well, that's going to cause a lot of pain. And look, Jerome Powell, basically, his forecast, to quote Mr. T is Clubber Lang, pain, right? That's what the
Right.
prediction is here.
Right.
So, but Scott, this is what you get when you're going to punt this problem over to the Fed and say resolve it,
Yep.
when the Fed really can't solve a supply problem.
Right.
You got them working on demand. We're going in the wrong direction. We have to increase supply, and that relates to policy.
All
So
right.
again, we're missing the boat. We need to refocus in, stop playing politics, and get it right.
No kidding. I love what you had to say. Thank you very much, Dan. Great content as usual coming to us from Nutley, New Jersey. Thanks, Dan Geltrude, America's Accountant. Let's take a look at